As the days get shorter and the nights get chillier, there is nothing more cozy than cuddling up with a chunky knit blanket. And did you know that you can make one of these all by yourself, no prior knitting experience required and no needles required? And today I am going to show you how using some budget-friendly yarn from Amazon. So let's get started. Just look at this gorgeous blanket. I love that it's an oversized throw size. It's about 4 by 6 feet, and it only took me about 3 hours to make. It's the perfect project if you want something soft and luxurious for your home, and this also makes an absolutely amazing gift for someone on your list. So first things first, let's talk about yarn. I did make one of these last year with Bernat Big Blanket yarn. You can find it at Michael's. Never buy it full price. Always wait for the buy one get one half price sale or the 30% off sale. This year I am using some yarn from Amazon. This is the Balapet brand. You can buy a pack of 8 skeins of this brand, which is the perfect amount for about a 4 by 6 blanket again. In my opinion, this Amazon yarn is even softer than the Bernat yarn. So it is my new favorite yarn for making these blankets, and it often goes on deal. So I will link this down in the description box below and you can check that out for yourself. It sells out really quickly, so if you see it in stock, make sure to put it in your cart and get it as soon as you can. I decided to make this blanket with this sage green yarn from Amazon. I love this color because it's good for all year round. My total cost for this blanket at the time of making it was around $62 Canadian. So that's about $45 US. I think that's a great deal for this oversized blanket, and you can make one for a similar cost if you buy the Michael's Bernat yarn as well, as long as you get it on sale. I'll also leave a link in that description box below to the Bernat Big Blanket yarn. So you will need 8 skeins of the Amazon yarn to make this project, or 6 of the Bernat blanket yarn. You'll also need a large surface to start on, so I recommend an island or a table or even a bed that you're not going to be using. It's important that you have a nice large flat surface. Mine is about 4 feet by 3 feet, because if you want to take a break, you want to make sure that your blanket is not going anywhere and you don't lose any stitches. And then all you need is your yarn and a pair of scissors and your hands, and you're ready to go. So we're going to start by making our first chain. So what you have to do is make a slip knot. Unravel one of your skeins of yarn and make a loop. You want to leave a tail about 6 to 8 inches long. After you've made the loop, take your working yarn, that's the yarn that's attached to your ball, and pull a loop up through the first loop that you've created. Then you're going to pull this tight. What I do is I use my 4 fingers on my hand as a gauge and pull the yarn snugly against my fingers. That ensures that every stitch is about the same size. So that's how you create your slip knot, and you're ready to continue your chain. Put your hand through the loop that you've created and pull some more of that working yarn through. Pull it snug against those 4 fingers and you have your second chain. You're going to repeat this process until you make 24 chains. I found 24 to be the perfect size of my blanket. It ended up being about 4 feet long, but you can experiment with something wider or narrower if you like. Now, once you finish your chain, we're going to make the first row. So we're going to now go the opposite direction, and you can start by pulling a loop of working yarn through that last stitch on your chain. Then you're going to go to the previous stitch on your chain and pull another loop of working yarn through. Now for all of the rows after this first chain, I use 3 of my fingers and pull that yarn snugly around those fingers. These stitches can be smaller than the first and the last row on your blanket. And this is what's going to help make your blanket look a lot more nice and even. You're going to repeat this process of pulling your working yarn through each chain that you created until you have 24 stitches for your first row. You can keep track by counting them, writing them down, whatever works for you. Now you're going to create your next row by going the opposite direction. Again, pull that working yarn through the last stitch you created, and then go the other way. Pull the working yarn through the next stitch, and so on until you're at the end of your blanket in the opposite direction. And that's it. You are working your blanket. That is how you finger knit a blanket. You're going to continue in this manner until you run out of yarn on your skein. However, you want to make sure there's at least 6 inches left so that you can weave that end in your blanket at the end. Now you're going to open up a new skein of your chunky yarn, and you're going to leave a 6-inch end at least on that yarn and just start finger knitting as per usual. So what I do is I do about 3 stitches of the new yarn, and then I flip my work carefully over to the back and tie those 2 ends together using a loose square knot. And you can tighten this square knot up at the end of your project, so don't really worry about that. Then flip it back to the right side and keep knitting with your new skein of yarn back and forth. So for this blanket, I'm making it all the same color. It's all going to be this gorgeous and soft sage green. However, if you want to do stripes like I did on my previous blanket, all you have to do is add your new yarn color at the beginning of a row. You don't obviously want to add it in the middle. You want to add it at the beginning of the row. If you want to see how I do that, I will leave a link to my previous video with a striped blanket down in that description box below. Now, as the blanket gets longer, you might find it helpful to fold it accordion style as you work so you can get your arms over it. You could also roll it up. So really whatever works for you so that you can reach your blanket properly. Again, I used my full 6 skeins of Bernat Big Blanket yarn and 8 full skeins of the Amazon Balapet yarn, and that made my blanket about 6 feet long. However, you can experiment to make it shorter, longer, whatever works for you. However, I find 4x6 is the perfect size for that gift or that oversized throw blanket for your home. To finish your blanket, you're going to want to make sure that you end your last row, ensuring that you have at least 3 times the width of your blanket's worth of yarn left. So for example, if you have a 4-foot wide blanket, make sure you have 12 feet of extra yarn at the end because you want to make sure you have enough to do this final cast off row. So to finish your blanket, you're doing what's called casting off. You're starting your row like you've done all the other ones by finger knitting 2 loops. And now for this, I use my 4 fingers once again as my gauge and pull the yarn snugly over 4 fingers to make these loops a little bit looser than the rest. After you've knit the 2 loops, pull the first loop over the second loop, holding on to that second loop. And then you're going to continue like this. You're going to create a new finger knit stitch and then pull the previous loop over this loop. Create a new one, pull the previous loop over this loop, and continue till you're at the end of your blanket and fully cast it off. Once you have a final loop, you're simply going to pull the remainder of your yarn through that loop nice and snugly. Now you're almost done, and this part is really easy and fun. You're going to flip your blanket over to the wrong side. You can adjust any of those square knots where you've joined yarn together and just pull them nice and snugly. Make sure all of your ends are trimmed to about 6 inches long and weave them with your fingers into the stitches. And I weave mine through about 3 stitches in the back, trim off any excess, and continue like that. And that is it. Your gorgeous, chunky finger knit blanket is all done. I love this Amazon yarn. I highly recommend it. It is so soft and plush. Perfect gift, perfect accent for your fall or winter decor. And I really, really hope you try this. I think you will love this craft too. If you make one of these, I would love to see your creations. Make sure to tag me on Instagram or Facebook at The DIY Mommy. And if you have any questions about making these, definitely leave those questions down in the comments below and I will help you out. The other blanket I made is so pretty too. I love the stripes in it. So check that out. I will leave that video for you to watch next right up here.